Hi, everybody, and thank you for being here. My name is Amy Bryant with Wild Child Counseling in Atlanta, Georgia, and I also have an online international community on Facebook, Parenting Beyond Punishment. And I am so happy to be here today talking with my good friend and colleague, Lori Petro of Teach Through Love. Welcome, Lori. I am so happy to be speaking with you today about conscious communication with teens.
Yay. Hi, Amy. So good to see you back in our comfy zones, right?
I know.
Right. I got my comfy clothes on.
Me too.
My cozy sweater. It was really warm here yesterday, and now it's a little bit chilly, so I had to put a sweater back on.
Ah, nice.
Try not to be upset about that, but
yes.
I'm not.
Yes.
No.
So I'm so glad we've done so many talks for the No Swing Challenge and for the non-No Swing Challenge events. And I always love to talk to you about this topic. So although teens is a special topic to us. So
it's like we're now in that experiential phase of teen. Yeah. Right before it was like we were covering everything, but our kids were still younger. So we knew, and I only have one child. So I didn't have anyone before or after, but now I'm in, she just turned 16 and it's just a whole new, wonderful, challenging phase. But of course, for me, what I always like to come back to is like, I do this work because of how I was raised and what I didn't get and what I needed. And so I really always want to come back to how can I give her what she needs, still set limits. And I think one of the questions, I know we said, conscious communication with teens, it's kind of broad, right? But I think one of the most important things to me was keeping her ability to trust herself intact, like not disciplining that out of her, because I think sometimes so much of what we say to our kids in an attempt, I'm so sorry. Is that my bell on, or is that,
no, it's not. When people are joining, you can hear them. I thought I had muted it when I set it up, but I didn't.
Well, you can shut it. I know you can shut it off inside in the settings. Just go up into the settings. I don't know if I can do it. It said I was a co-host, but I don't know if I can do it, but try to keep my brain on task.
All right.
On task. Okay. But what I was saying was that sometimes the discipline, I use that word with a lot of leeway. But what we say to our kids in an attempt to get them to understand the rules or understand the consequences of their actions and all of these things actually makes them distrust their inner voice. And it's not intentional, but I feel like it's an accidental consequence of just sort of a very, traditional way of raising children, probably the way most of us were raised. And so one of the things I always think of is, like, how do I know that I'm actually raising a kid who's going to make good decisions? Like, yes, I have this good relationship with her, but how do I really, really know that what I'm doing is on target for what she needs? And I realized that was a question of me also trusting my own intuition, like my own inner knowing about what she needs and being confident in that moment. So it's kind of, a cycle, it's circular. It will, I'm passing down these beliefs, right? Like how confident I feel and how confident I feel setting limits and all these things. And what does she need? What does she need to make good decisions? She needs to be able to trust herself, right? She needs to have self-confidence. She needs to have that self-awareness, and then also of other people. So it's really about her emotional intelligence, right? Which is so much of what we talk about. But I think that what we say to our kids is what gets in the way most of the time about that.
Yeah.
And I thought that we would talk about some of those things.
I love it. I think too, I'm still trying to fix this. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You know what? Do you want to log into the Zoom on on the website? Because I know you can do it there. And I
I
can just
did. It won't let me change it anymore.
That's so strange that we can't. I'm sorry, you guys, that if it's the bell. Maybe it's just us. Is it just us or does everybody hear? Because if it's just us, we can get through.
Yeah.
But I hope it's not distracting.
We can also lock the meeting and then nobody can come anymore.
Oh no, I'd hate to do that. That feels.
Y'all are late. Forget it.
What does matter? No,
that's not parent friendly.
No, but
no, it's interesting. I think, we talk about, setting limits and using conscious communication as a way to help support kids versus to teach them lessons, right? I think finding ways to talk to them that helps them look inside and notice what's going on for them intuitively, like that gut feeling. So many of us lost touch with that ages ago, depending on your age, right? And so how do we instead nurture it?
Like, just think right now, is there a time, like everybody, is there a time when your intuition or that gut feeling really served you?
Yeah.
Like where it maybe protected you, maybe it gave you, told you which way to go, like it could have served you in the most mundane way. But having that is, I think, so just having that inner knowing is so important. Mm-hmm. But I think as parents, of course, a lot of us still believe that consequences are integral to self-discipline and promoting that sense of responsibility in kids and like knowing right from wrong. They think that if there are no consequences, then how will kids learn? But we know that research actually tells us that kids who are punished or even praised for things end up becoming sneakier. Mm-hmm. They don't share what's going on inside. So what can we do?
It also makes it really hard for them to develop their own internal moral compass. Like I don't know about you, but my own personal morals are different than how I was raised. And so how do we help develop that critical thinking piece around what's right or wrong versus what mom or dad or the teacher, the administrator, or the authority figure at large wants from them?
Yeah.
And is the authority always right?
You bring up such an interesting point about morality because, those choices that we make, like, are we trying to, help our kids, or are we trying to just make them believe something that we believe, that we think is right? And not I wish I had a lot of that. I had a lot of you will believe this is what's right. You will not think anything different. And granted, I grew up in sort of it wasn't just like a normal family that was I was a very dysfunctional, like lots of mental illness and abuse. Like there were crazier things going on. So maybe it was in the extreme, but even in, lesser doses, just that imposition of our own thought. And kids don't think this the way that we think either, right?
Right.
But I would love, so does anybody have any, I know, Amy, do you have one? I know a time when intuition.
Tell me.
Just saved me. I was driving and I was using a friend's car that had gone in for some repairs and it started, I think it started overheating. Yeah, it started overheating. And just in my head, I just kept hearing, get out of the car, get out of the car, get out of the car, get out of the car. And I was like, no, I'm not getting out of the car. I pulled over and I was contemplating for a minute. Then it just kept going, get out. It was just, I say voice, but it was like my own voice saying, get out of the car. So I get out of the car and I start running up the street and I turn around and the car had burst into, it's like the movies, and the roof had burst into flames. and whatever, the engine or whatever it was caught on fire. But it was like, had I not listened in that, I mean, I probably would have been safe, but it would have burst into flames right in front of me, the roof of the car, and I would have been in the car. And it was just like, how many times do we just take a left when, even though we know we're supposed to take a right? And that happened to be a big example, but I don't know if you have times when you didn't trust or you did trust and it like helped you.
Both. I'm trying to think of one that's appropriate to share.
But doesn't this make
yes,
like
even when my child was young, you know, she had some physical health issues, and like everyone said, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. But I knew, like, my whole body was like, this is not. We ended up firing the pediatrician and finding someone new, and then we found all this stuff that was going on.
wow,
You
how
know,
much like confidence do you have to have the trust?
and it was terrifying, right? How many of us are really terrified to go, okay, everybody says it's no big deal and I should blow it off, and you know, and then we go, I can't. I have to get out of the car. I have to fire the pediatrician. I have to
Not listen to the people who are telling me I should punish or they need firmer consequences, right? It like can seep into everything. I think it's really important to really trust what our gut is telling us as parents and not what we think is you know, appropriate punishment or appropriate consequences, or what we think other people expect of us to do. Because our kids, when they go out there, especially our older kids or teenagers, and they're faced with that peer pressure, if they have seen us stand up to, now it doesn't mean that it's comfortable, right, to stand up to people. I'm sure standing up
comfortable
is not fun at all. And standing up to family members, or if you are parenting in a way where you are connecting with your kids and not just, you know, being the authoritarian, it can be hard to connect, like that judgment that other people might have of us, right? We feel that from others, even if it's imagined, it just feels like people are watching. And so that can be really hard. But if our kids see us take their side in those moments, it seeps down. So when they're out and they're faced with, you know, alcohol or drugs or, you know, whatever it may be, risky behaviors that they're not prepared to handle, if they trust like that inner knowing, or if their friends are all going to do something and they feel a nudge that says, I don't think this is a good idea. Now, our teenagers, right, they often will go with their peers. But I think if we teach them not to discount that inner voice, but the way that we teach them to not discount that inner voice is not by telling them, not, you know, you have to listen to your inner voice when those things, it's not that. It's not teaching them about their inner voice. It's about letting them have freedom of thought, freedom of choice, with limits, of course, right? So it's not about just letting them do whatever they want, but when they do, just what you said early, not making like lessons. So we don't want to make lessons out of their mistakes. That doesn't serve them to say, well, if you can't learn to be responsible, then, or if I can't trust you, then you can't have X, Y, Z. Like that kind of a conversation is what so many, I know I heard that a lot as a kid.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, think about it. Like when you first go, okay, what do I think the right thing to do is? We're so used to, if you were raised in a punitive home, your immediate instinct is going and asking people, what do you think? Should I do this? You might get nervous. You might get sweaty hands. You might get tense because we're used to getting in trouble for doing what we want to do versus going, well, this is what I write. Some of the language we use a lot is, you know, like, there's going to be people who aren't going to like this, whatever I'm doing, but this is what I feel is right. Or, you know, what do you feel like is the right thing to do? You know, if you sit really quietly, or if you go for a walk and you get still, what feels right to you? You know
what I love that I heard you ask your child, they asked for think it was if she like wanted something to eat maybe, and you asked her to ask her body if what her body, to trust her body. What did her body think about that? And it sounds like, oh, my child would just eat all the candy in the world, or they would do whatever, and it's like, yeah, so we have to provide some limits sometimes. But when children are taught to trust themselves to find the answer, and then it's like, if you still have trouble, come check in with me and I'll help you figure out, what might be good, or what could be good for a snack, or what you might need, whatever the situation may be. But if they're taught to first ask themselves instead of look to us, it's so powerful. It doesn't become like the extreme doesn't happen unless maybe there's other factors going on, anxiety or whatever, that's, actually becoming a source of comfort. But it was so powerful to hear you say that, and to watch her check in with herself and then make it, or I think it was even, maybe it wasn't even about food. It might've been like doing something. It was climbing the tree.
Climbing the tree.
That's what it was. It was climbing the tree. And it was like, I'm definitely like, I can't watch gymnastics. I can't watch anything where people are like in danger of like, falling or something, because it just stresses me out. And I watched, and she asked if she could climb. And when you said that, to trust her body, ask, what does your body think? So she would know whether she could handle it, which made so much more sense than you saying, oh, it looks too high, because you have you're not up there. You're not her legs holding on to that, or her limbs. And so I guess we kind of got off track, but that was such an amazing example. These are just some words that we can, instead of telling our kids what the answer is, check in with them and say, what is your body telling you? Whether it be food, or how high they can jump, or whether they should go to their friend's house, or whether they want, like maybe they can't decide. You have a teenager that can't decide, what to wear, or which friend to call, or they're having, a disagreement. Like there's so many different ways that could apply, just that general. What is your body telling you? You were going to say something.
So food can be the same thing, because if they say, can I have a sweet? It's almost like they're asking permission, even if they've eaten, 3 million sweets, and not to demonize sweets, but it's just an example, right? So, well, I don't know how many sweets you've had, what do you think? And really making them take ownership. Who cares if they decide to have, well, we might care, but it's less important in that moment whether they have a 7th donut, and more important about whether they're taking a moment just to be mindful. Well, let's see, I had the donut when I woke up, and the donut with coffee, and and the donut after lunch. Okay, maybe I'll wait, right? But just that moment of pause to think.
What happens if you're always the one answering, yes, you can have the donut, yes, you can climb that high, no, you can't go out with the mall by yourself, or no, you have to check it? Then what happens when we're not there? If we're always the one saying yes or no, or giving the options. Now, of course, it's not saying let your teenagers make all the rules and decisions, right? But these are just very like basic, simple, everyday interactions that we're talking about, that we want to keep this kind of a focus. Obviously, if your child is wanting to do something unsafe, we're not saying, hey, check in with your body about that, right? So sometimes people, I think, take it.
Mom, I found this cigarette.
Right. Yeah.
Like, can I light up?
Right. What is your body telling you, honey? No, like that's totally not what we mean, of course.
Right.
But that might be a question. That might be, an opportunity to not also become accusatory, or judgmental, or even sarcastic necessarily in that moment, as a way to, I like sarcasm. I find that can be used intelligently and to convey a point sometimes, but I don't like it to make fun of or humiliate our children or their decisions, right? So sometimes I think that parents use sarcasm to try to be lighthearted, but we want to just look at, like, what are we really telling our kids about this situation?
We have a couple of comments. My challenge is staying present and having words for the way I want and believe in, but didn't have growing up. So when I'm triggered, it's difficult to parent the way I want. And sometimes the words or the tone coming out is definitely the echo of my parents. And I hate that. Yeah. I think this is that mindful pause. And I am totally guilty of that. And I'll go, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I had this tone or said these words, and this is what I want to do, and I blew it.
Being real.
Yeah, we just can't do it right all the time.
Yeah. And it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
To like say that to your kid, like, that did not come out right. I'm sorry, that is not what I meant. I'm acting from old patterns, just being really honest in that moment, taking care of that. If that's really a challenge to stay present, that's something outside of, like, we can't find the words because in that moment we're too dysregulated, right? We have to somehow find a way to practice being mindful, slowing down, taking care of our sensory system. Just Amy, you taught me like one of these really gentle movements too, is just to like give myself a hug when I'm feeling stressed. And I'll just like, anything really to squeeze. I was always one that had, like, even when I used to do talks, I don't have one here. I had this pillow that was one of those, or release. I don't know what kind. I can't think of the word right now, but it was a very like satisfying pillow to have to squeeze, just to like keep myself from spinning out like of control, because I also grew up in a household where nervous system activation was like every day.
Norm. Yeah, it was the norm.
It was just like that was just the way it was.
Yeah.
So I know that, and that's different. That's really an outside practice of, okay, well, what's one thing I can do today to just give myself a little bit of peace.
Right. To soothe.
Slowly, yeah, to soothe.
We have a great question. They said, what about when they say their body is telling them one thing, but they still want to do the opposite? At 12, I feel like it's important to let him test out what happens when he consciously chooses to ignore that. I feel like I'd like him to do that now because we have a solid relationship and he's communicating the need for space to make those types of mistakes, but also know I'll be a soft place to land. Thoughts?
I think, yeah, absolutely. And this again is where we're saying, obviously, if it's something unsafe, we're going to have to put a limit in that, but we can still do that without blaming a child, without, being punitive, without making our discomfort their fault, all of that. But yeah, if it's something that isn't going to work out, or isn't necessarily going to benefit him, but he really does need to experience that to understand that kind of, we say, oh, that's not safe, or, oh, that might not be a good idea. I think it'll be better if you do this. And they're like, no, this is absolutely. I think it's better to, well, you know what, let's try that. Yeah, and if it doesn't work out, we'll come back. Absolutely. What do you think, Amy?
Yeah, I think more and more I say, do you want to hear my concerns? Because sometimes they're like, no. And if they need to hear my concerns, if it needs to be brought into to her awareness, then I'll say, these are my concerns, and if I feel like it's dangerous, I'm still figuring out, like, is it really dangerous? Like, how dangerous is this? Then I might say, these are my concerns. Is there something we can do around this? Or I don't know, these are my concerns, but maybe you just try it and see. Because that is such an important piece of learning, is trial and error.
That's really,
I'm all about letting them try and making mistakes and going, oh, well, what would you do different next time? Or maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you would try to do it again and see if it has a different outcome.
Which, as long as they are, as long as they're not hurting themselves or anyone else, like, I think we're so afraid sometimes that they're going to fall behind, or they're not going to, meet an expectation or meet a deadline, especially if it were maybe related to something, with school. Like, I could just hear like someone saying, well, my child doesn't think that they think that they can put off, finishing an assignment and have enough time to play this video game because they say that they've got it under control. Like, I don't know if anybody has a kid that's like, I got it, mom. Have you heard that? I got it, mom. And you know what? She's a little bit older now, but at the beginning, it was so hard for me to be like, no, you don't totally have it. I want to tell you more, right? But and that's a place where we might be like, no, there has to be this before that, before games or whatever. And we might really want to impose that kind of control and structure. And I think sometimes we need to work, like, let those boundaries move a little bit. And we can say to our kid, you know what? I don't know if that, like you said, here are my concerns, but I'm going to let you try it this week. Let's do this. Let's talk on next Monday and see if it worked out. And we might have to go back to the schedule of no games. But I think that, I want you to figure this out and see if this really will work for you better.
I mean, I certainly wish I had that skill when I went to college, right? How do we learn time management if someone else is managing our time? We had someone said, what about homework? I think homework is absolutely an opportunity for them to learn time management. And I have lots of feelings and thoughts about homework, though.
Yeah, I definitely am not people say, well, that homework has to get done in there because that's part of the school. And I have to tell you, I have two feelings on that. If it's to the point where where it's ruining your relationship with your child, then it doesn't have to be done, because you can always go to that school and be like, this is what's happening. And this is where we need some leeway and some, adjustments created. And if that's not the situation, then it's really about that executive function, right? Kids, it's not just like they have to learn to manage their time. They also need to figure out what motivates them. Like, do they need to have a partner to sit down and do work? Do they need to, put all of their assignments on a whiteboard so they can see them, like, visually, and then be able to erase them when they're done, so that they have that concrete piece attached to it. Like, there's so many ways that we can help that executive function piece. But if it's to the point where the child is really refusing and stressing, and they're fighting with you so much, then I think there's a bigger stress there. And I say you have to just cut out the homework. Even if you do it for 2 weeks, like, let it go and figure out what is really preventing this kid from being able to meet. Because this is what I felt like as a kid. Everybody expects something from me. I can't meet all of these expectations. So you know what? This is going. I'm not going to look at it. I'm not going this chore or whatever it might be. Maybe it's, a particular subject. And it was me saying, I'm overwhelmed. So we have to pull kids out of their overwhelm before we can ask them to do executive function tasks.
And it's all skill development too. Can we get really curious? Look, I see that you're stressed out, and you're right. Instead of doing homework, let's figure out what is getting in your way. Which piece of this do you hate? Which piece of this do you need help on? Which piece of this do you need to say to your teacher, like, I just can't do this? How do we help them self-advocate even?
Oh, yeah, because sometimes it's the relationship with the teacher that's making this subject either unapproachable, or they're not understanding something. Like, there's so many reasons for homework refusal. And if we just so many reasons. And if we just look at it as they're refusing, so that's one of the things that we have to do, right?
We have to unpack that.
reframe. We have to like switch that language around. I'm sorry, my shoe is untied. I didn't tie my shoe. Reframing how we see it, because when we say my kid is refusing, my kid won't,
they're lazy, they're unmotivated, they're
respectful, which are all of the things that I was called as a teenager. Now, all of things that I know run through our heads, you know, even as the most conscious parent, I am still so unconscious in my head sometimes because I'm human and I feel things and I get mad and then I have to investigate, okay, what's really happening here?
And you have a childhood of language running through your head that was handed to you on a platter, and it is almost impossible to erase it.
So all of this, yeah, whatever was drilled into us, like this is, I mean, we have a view of children, right? This is how I was taught to see children. And specifically, this is how I was taught to see children who misbehave, quote unquote, right? Those words, those buzzwords that are all tied into parenting and all of this stuff, when it's really just about this relationship. And in order to have a good relationship, it's not just about talking about emotional intelligence and emotions. It's really saying, all right, let's figure out where you got stuck.
It's like Dr. Ross Green says, kids do well when they can. So if they're not doing well, if they're not doing their homework, if they're fighting with their siblings, if they're, you know, whatever, sneaking out at night, what's going on for them? What can we help unpack to figure it out? Yes, one of the comments says, mindful self-compassion is one way I've been working on my compassion and sense change for my kids. Because even as an adult, I struggle with attention and executive functioning. Oh my gosh, me too. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so how do we move into that space of mindful self-compassion for ourselves? I'm triggered. I'm scared. I'm worried, right? Okay, let me attend to this piece here, so that I can move back into relationship and curiosity with my child.
Yeah. It really is through that self-compassion. You're so right on. And once you do that, then you can see the child as, oh, this kid is really overwhelmed, instead of this kid refuses everything. It becomes such a shift. But it's not, I mean, this is not stuff that we should expect to do in that moment. Like, if you're in a heated moment, attend to yourself, right? Don't try to reach for compassion for your child until you're regulated. I think that's probably the most important thing that I could say, because everyone kind of we want to like get to the answer. We want to get to the, you know, let's fix this. Let's get through this moment. Let's all feel good again. But really, it's like, no, let's not even discuss this until
I will sometimes be stuck in that really stressful moment, and I'll be like, she's not giving me a hard time. She's having a hard time. She's not giving me a hard time. And it just makes me more mad, you know? And so I have to go, okay, wait, like, let me stop. Like, yes, I know that intellectually, but for whatever reason, I can't feel that emotionally right now. Right. And then just like you were saying, I got to attend to myself, and I've got to get regulated, or at least not be like panicking or whatever that feeling is. And I'll do the squeezes and the movement, and then go, okay, now I can move back into compassion for them, for her.
And I think if we're in this cycle of maybe negativity where we haven't been responding to our kids in ways that we want, going back and just saying, what do you think about like a fresh start? But not just saying a fresh start and then expecting them, you know, to sort of change, but saying, taking ownership of what we're going to do as a model for them.
Absolutely.
For what they can do, right? Like, I notice that when people aren't doing what I want and what I say, because I'm expecting everyone to sort of do these things, and that's on me. I know that. And I notice that I get my voice, I will yell, or I'll get really loud, or whatever it is that happens. and then like take ownership of it, and then say, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to work on this week. And then what is that tool? How can you practice that mindfulness? What does really just help you take control in that moment? And I don't want to make it sound like it's so easy, because it's really not. And sometimes we're just like you said, like, you're like, I don't know, she's having a hard time. You're like, that just makes me mad. Like, I like to sometimes just feel my mad. Like, you know what? Let's take a moment. Let's not talk. I'm gonna go out in the other room, and I'll just go out there and be mad, or I'll text a friend. So it's not like I don't think we should always have to be alone. To get rid of that. But we're often like, we live such divided lives, and like people are at work, or we're not like just, like can't just walk out into the community necessarily and find something helpful.
You don't live next door to me, Lori. I can't be like, I need a hug.
No,
help me like,
it sounds so silly, but it really, like, we do need that support. So like a text with a friend, I think is that modern way of doing that, walking outside. But if you it's like, set that up with a friend, find someone that you can say like, hey, will you be like my panic partner when I'm having a moment with my kid? Can I text you? Or, we can text each other and work that out. Or if you have an actual, partner that you're parenting with, maybe that person can be, and if you're a 2-parent household, tagging each other out, like making agreements ahead of time. Like, you know what, I know that you've been stressed out lately, and if you could, I'm gonna, like, tag out. I'm using improv language, but like, if you see me having a hard moment, I'm gonna come and I'll take over for you, so you can go take a breath. Like, if you see that person unable to really like get in that moment, that's, I think, really important to be able to switch off that piece in our brain.
Agreed.
Reconnect.
We had a comment that said, yes, it was meltdown city last night in our house, adults and kids both. I managed to pause and see the bigger picture. And once I was regulated, I just got close, cuddled. We didn't use words other than I love you, and they just melted into me. And I needed that as much as they did.
It's amazing how just a little bit of close connection can like soothe everybody sometimes.
And if your teen is not harming themselves or harming someone else, it is absolutely okay to take care of your needs and to say, look, I am losing my bleep, and I've got to go calm down before I can have this conversation. Go to the mailbox, go get some water. There's lots of regulating activities that is a little beyond the scope of conscious communication. But what are your goals when you're talking to your kids? What are your long-term goals for your relationship with them? What are your long-term goals for what they're going to be like as a person? It's really kind of what it's about, right?
Was muted. There I am.
Hi.
It's keeping that in the front. Like, how can I maintain my relationship with this kid? Because when they're teenagers, I think that's way more important than
anything else.
Yeah, almost anything. Like, I hate to say more important than their study skills, because I know those can be really important, especially if they're going on to higher education. But and that relationship doesn't mean that you do their, studying for them or you do their work, right? So it's not like saying that you have to coddle them and that you don't let them do these things, but that you just stand alongside your kid. Like, if I could just leave everyone with that, like, just stand alongside them as a witness to their pain. Like, if I could think of the one thing that I would have wanted from my parents, would be for them to non-judgmentally witness my mistakes and say, when it doesn't work out, to say that it didn't work out, or that wasn't something that you expected, or I wasn't expecting that, whatever it is, like not making it about how could you do that? Right. What were you thinking? Like if we're moving in with curiosity, I love that word, just being, because it relieves us of having to figure it out and having to know answers. It's, I don't know, but I want to know more, or this is the boundary that I'm comfortable with right now. But let's talk about, I want to hear about what, is going on for you when you hear that, right? So that we can still set boundaries and they can still be non-negotiable in our head. Like maybe we have, this is just a hard line, but we don't have to make let's not blame our children for not liking those boundaries as well, right? It's like, you just have to accept this. And we get so upset that they're not accepting the boundary. And we think that that's like an affront to our discipline or our authority, or all of this. And it's really just like, be curious about that and stand firm.
And do we need then to have a conversation? Do we need to reflect on that boundary? What is that boundary all about?
Yeah.
Sometimes we do have to reflect, especially as they're growing up, as they're learning more autonomy and needing more choices. How do we have conversations with them about it? What is it like for you that this is the rule? And what would you like to be different about it? That can go a long way in them butting heads with us. Or maybe it's us butting heads with them. If you have a question before we are done, how are you on time, Lori? If you have a question and you want to pop it in the chat, let us know. I have sent many a text to you, Lori.
Right? We have definitely been that person for each other, not just even with our kids, but sometimes just with work stuff too. So it's not just, oh, I need to talk about my kids. It's maybe something really stressful has happened. And now your kids are needing your attention or your emotions. I'm sorry. I have someone who needs me. Come here, Brando. Do you want to see that? Do you want to see everybody? He needs to go on a walk. He's very sorry.
Well, we are almost out of time. I wanted to say we had someone who said that they're loving this conversation. I'm so glad. And then another person said, this is great information. How does this translate for kids or teens who have communication disorders? And I love this question because the truth is there are so many ways to communicate. And one of the things I tell parents consistently is you have to trust that behavior is communication. And if they're upset, they're melting down, if they're pushing back, if they're refusing to cooperate, that they're saying, I'm stressed out, I need help, I need connection, I need regulation. I need you to help me figure out what it is I need and how to find it. So if you have a child, a teen, anyone in your life who struggles to communicate, the key is going to be figuring out what do they need. There are so many communication devices that are available. I encourage y'all to try sign language. You can use visual pictures.
Sign language, I really recommend, especially it takes the pressure of having to come up with words. As someone who's not neurotypical, I really understand that. When I was young, I would just not say, I would just go mute. I just didn't say anything. And my daughter just happens to be learning sign language now, just because she's fascinated by it. And so
I love it.
Using that in like a stressful moment. And I was just reading about how helpful that can be for kids who have communication challenges, because it just takes the pressure. Like doing a sign is so much easier, even if it's, I need space or I'm stressed, like not now, cause not now verbally, even if a kid can say it, their tone can, even then we get dysregulated by the way they're speaking to us. So nonverbal communication can be so helpful.
I would say it's helpful for every family. Every, you know, there are times when I'm super angry and I will be like, I cannot. And I just let them know, like, that is my sign. This just means like, I am gonna lose my shit. And like, I'm sorry, but like, I cannot. Right. And like, let's give our parents, our parents, well, maybe I need to give my parents permission too, but let's give our kids permission to be brief and direct. And like, maybe they're going to sound like they have a tone, but that's a tone of distress. Right. And that's an important thing. Lori, I think you're out of time, but let me say this too. How about a 13-year-old that doesn't want to talk about anything, only wants to watch YouTube, does not want to connect with anyone? That is really hard. I usually, when I'm working with parents who are having this issue, the first thing I do is I say, you try to connect with them over things that they like. I always would encourage you to build connection through YouTube first, and then you can pull out that experience you share to, like, we're having an ice cream cone and talking about it, right? But you're building it slowly. You're building a nervous system that can feel safe in conversation or communication, and however they're able to communicate. But that's where I would start.
That YouTube is so regulating for them. For the fear that talking, or even, because not even knowing what, not only what they might be thinking what you want to hear, but also knowing what they feel or what they think might be so scary to even do that. Yes, building that. And it's so slow, Amy. I know it can be so like,
it can be really slow
now, but just like what you said, like then you draw it out to over the ice cream cone, but you're still talking about stuff that you're getting into their world, right? You're meeting them where they are at in order to then gently guide them to where, you know, we hope that they can be in terms of.
And that relational safety piece is the connection, right? And so when you're building that safety, and if they're stuck in the YouTube world or whatever world, Minecraft or whatever, remember that the world at large is feeling too big for them, right? And so all of this out here is more than their brain and their body can handle. And so how do we enter their world and be safe so that when they're out just a little bit, they can handle it, right? And then one other question, how do you tell the difference between a child who is struggling or just being strong-willed? It's generally the same thing. Yeah. Why are they being strong-willed? What are they communicating? What is it that they need? How do we sidle up beside them and say, I hear you. You were like hell to the no about this. Let's see what we can figure out.
I think we mistake being strong-willed as disobedience, right? Because when we say what's the difference between struggling and strong-willed, it's almost like, well, if you're struggling, then I can see it. But if you're just being strong-willed, then maybe, you know, then we got to do something different. And it's like, no, that strong will is, I mean, I love it because that's a kid who's saying, I will not take this feeling of being hurt or being unheard or being, you know, whatever, disrespected or not having what I want. Like,
I'm going to listen to my intuition.
Yeah, I'm listening to my intuition. My intuition says I can have ice cream all day, right? So it's okay that you are setting a limit of no more ice cream. And it's okay that they're saying, I can have it. It's right for me, right? Or whatever it might be, whatever that, like, it's okay for our kids to want things. Mm-hmm. And it's also okay for, like, I know that, yes, we're saying give them freedom and let them choose. But again, if we're setting a limit, like if they literally just had an ice cream cone and we're not buying another one because that's the limit, it's okay for them to say, no, I guess we're talking about younger kids at this point, right? Because we're probably not going to be fighting with like a 16-year-old about, well, you never know about ice cream. But it's just, my point is it's okay for us to set limits. And it's also okay for our kids not to like that limit. I have said to my child, you know, in her strong-willedness, totally appropriate for you to be upset about this. That's why I'm here. Like, I'm the parent because you aren't supposed to be able to make this you aren't supposed to be able to hold this limit for yourself. I have to do it. Mm-hmm. You don't like it. And that's totally acceptable. Like, that is understandable rather. Like, I just made it so that she knew that this was expected. Like, here I am. Yeah. Had to create this boundary to keep her safe. Mm-hmm. And here she is not wanting it. And that was okay. And she really, I mean, I guess I can't say how she took that at the moment, but we don't have those kinds of power struggles that me and my family had, because I had such limited freedom on everything, and everything was chosen for me, or decided for me. And I just think my mother is like that with the ice cream. I know there are other ice cream lovers out there. My daughter once filled out one of those, they fill out things at school for my favorite things are, and there was I love, and my daughter wrote ice cream, and she was 9, and I was like, yes, this is my kid right here. We all love ice cream.
Yeah. And I know some adults who are I wish someone would set some limits for me around ice cream. It's hard to resist.
Another way to regulate too, to feel good, is food can be a regulator, right? That's not necessarily a healthy way to regulate our emotions. But it's that emotional struggle.
Yeah. And it's also a really lovely way to go. I noticed that I'm wanting ice cream, and I'm not going to shame myself for finishing off this pint. I'm going to go, wow, I'm having a really hard time. Okay. What else can I do? Can I go find a neighbor to hang out with? Can I text a friend? What am I stressed about? And it's the same for our kids. What are they stressed about?
Yep. And often that ice cream, if they've had, and I know we keep using sweets, but I feel like I know a lot of kids, at least around where I am and am exposed to a lot of children, that is sort of a regulator. And it is something that's used as a treat. And in our schools, they give it out as rewards. And it's if you're constantly giving kids this feedback of, candy and sugar, then yeah, it definitely can become something that they rely on to feel good in a moment when they're feeling stressed. It's oh, you know what? I did something good. Let me grab that little, drop of feel good chocolate. I don't know, just a strain. So I know we keep talking about it like that, and not to,
I know it's funny
sugar, but it's
just an easy example.
Yeah, it's an easy example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
From my 80s childhood, which was filled with chocolate and
same. Well, thank you, Lori. If y'all want to learn more from Lori Petro, she's at Teach Through Love on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, on her website. She's got these amazing conscious communication cards. These are the ones, her educator pack. They're so beautiful, by the way. I love them. But she has them for parents also.
And for teens, we have the new
teens. The new teen deck. Do you have a teen deck?
It's just digital right now. It's 24 cards. So it's an add-on to the actual physical deck and the original deck, but I don't have them. We haven't made those physical yet. They're so small. I'm not sure how we're going to do that, but they're not available in the UK, but I can ship them to the UK. It's a little, international costs are a little bit crazy. And I'm a small company, but they are available, and I can ship more than one for the same cost. So if you get together with another parent or a group that wants to buy them together, you can split the shipping, and then it works out that way too.
You have the teens are available in digital. They're on your website. Yeah, I'll try to put them in the comment on YouTube or wherever we.
Yeah, you guys can all just go to teachthroughlove.com, click on the cards, and you can find them.
Perfect. Okay. Well, look at this. So Janae said, love Lori's cards. I need some more for the teen years.
Yay, definitely. And I'm going to hold next Wednesday. I'm going to hold for anybody that has the cards, the parent cards or the educator cards, the original decks. I'm going to hold a talk on how to use them and really how we put this put conscious communication into practice, some starter pointers. So if you're on my email list, or if you buy the cards, you'll end up on my email list, and I'll send you details for next Wednesday.
Nice.
for that. But thank you everyone for joining us. I hope it was
Thank
helpful.
you so much, everybody. Lori, I love seeing you. I'm going to schedule a workshop with you every week so we can see each other.
I know we should do more. We should do more. Thank you for always holding these, Amy. I know that you're just like, you just can't let it go because you're just,
I can't.
You have so much to offer and you have so many like things. And I love that it's like no stress. We're like, everybody has like the big, you'll get a million emails. We're like, no, we're just gonna not be.
We're gonna keep this simple, and if you can show up, fantastic.
Yeah, like it's here, and I love it. And you guys are here, and the recording will be
available. Yes.
Let us know. It'll be available. Yeah. So awesome.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Y'all have a great rest of your week. And Lori, I will see you offline.
Yes.
Well, sure.
Sort of. We did see each other recently offline.
We did in February. It was so fun. All right.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yes. Thank you.